Hailed a heroine by some and despised by others. A political icon in exile's on her way home. But what will Bhutto's homecoming mean for Pakistan? This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm David Foster. Thanks for joining us. After 8 years in exile, former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto says she'll return to Pakistan on Thursday. She claims she can return because of recent amnesty legislation that President Pervez Musharraf pushed through. He threw out corruption charges against her, but Pakistan's Supreme Court is now examining the legislation's legality. Speaking at a press conference on Tuesday, Bhutto said her return will mark the beginning of many changes in Pakistan.
My return heralds for the people of Pakistan the turn in the wheel from dictatorship to democracy, from exploitation to empowerment, from violence to peace.
Well, another former Prime Minister also thinks he could be the one to change the country. Bhutto and Nawaz Sharif were in talks themselves to form a unified opposition just months ago. Mr. Sharif attempted to return to Pakistan in September. He was deported just hours after he arrived from London. This despite a Supreme Court ruling that Nawaz Sharif had the right to return. Well, if he does eventually make it back, that would give Musharraf one more potential rival in national elections scheduled for early January. Musharraf ousted Sharif when he came to power in a coup in 1999. Well, that's some of the background. Let's talk about it now. Our guest from Karachi, Shazia Mari, a Member of Parliament and the Information Secretary of the Pakistan People's Party Women's Wing, that's Benazir Bhutto's party. In Islamabad, Ashan Iqbal, the Secretary of Information for the Pakistan Muslim League, that's Mr. Sharif's party. And also in Islamabad, Raja Asad Hamid, legal analyst and political correspondent for The Nation newspaper. Thank you very much for joining us here on Inside Story. Let me turn to you first of all, Mr. Hamid, to get an independent overview. In a country as big as Pakistan with so many complex issues, is it possible to gauge the mood of a country ahead of the return, hopefully, from her point of view, of Benazir Bhutto?
Of course, it's a very significant moment in history of Pakistan, as Benazir Bhutto, being a twice elected Prime Minister of Pakistan and chairperson of one of the largest political parties in the country, is coming back after 8 years in exile. It is, of course, a moment in Pakistan and across the country. Masses are looking forward for a genuine leadership to be present in the country, which was something they were lacking after the military coup that dislodged Nawaz Sharif in 1999, as you have earlier introduced in your program. It is, of course, an historic moment.
How strange is it for people in Pakistan to see her talking and forging some kind of alliance with Pervez Musharraf, in the eyes of some cutting a deal with the devil?
This, of course, was something different from Bhutto's politics and her legacy, which she inherited from her father. It is the first time she has gone closer to the military regime in so many clear words, though she managed to form two of her governments that were later dislodged before completing tenure. But so in so many clear words, she moving and trying to cut a power-sharing deal with the military regime. This is very different from her legacy and Benazir Bhutto's political point of view. This is something which has taken back the democratic forces in the country, and especially the civil society. It was a high time when everybody was expecting that it is a time when the charisma and the grip of the when the charisma of the Bhuttos was a little bit fading than its previous times. But it is exactly the same moment when the military, after its direct or indirect involvement of 60 years in country's politics, is also losing its grip on the affairs. At this stage of the national history, Benazir Bhutto moving closer and putting herself into a negotiating table with the military regime is, of course, something which has surprised democratic forces in the country.
Raja Hamid, thanks very much for now. I'm going to bring our other guests in just a moment, but it might be worth running over some of the issues that have plagued Musharraf and his government during the course of the last year. In March, President Musharraf suspended Chief Justice Mohammad Chowdhury, and the move prompted days of protest by lawyers and others across Pakistan. The president reinstated Mr. Chowdhury in July. Well, that same month, Mr. Musharraf ordered his security forces to storm Islamabad's Red Mosque and the adjoining school. The government accused clerics and students there of attempting to enforce strict religious law in the capital, and more than 100 people died in the siege. And also along the border with Afghanistan, Pakistani troops are battling Taliban and al-Qaeda fighters, and that fighting's killed hundreds in recent months and raised opposition to Musharraf's support for the so-called war on terror. Let's go to Shazia Mari from Ms. Bhutto's party at the PPP. And I'd just like to ask you, first of all, is it essential for Benazir Bhutto to have the law changed so that she can serve another term as Prime Minister? Because, of course, at the moment she's not able to, having already served 2 terms.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I would like to clear this misconception here that it is not Ms. Bhutto's struggle to become the Prime Minister for the 3rd time. But what we basically disagree with is the whole process that had taken place in an undemocratic setup, and a ban imposed on any elected representative to become the Prime Minister may it be for the 3rd time. So any amendment that comes constitutionally has to be through a democratic process, that is through a genuine democratic system in the country, which is what Ms. Bhutto is still struggling for. So her becoming the Prime Minister for the 3rd time is not for her own self, it's for any elected representative, may it be Mr. Nawaz Sharif or anyone else contesting for that position in the country.
How much has her position changed? Because over the years she has supported the Taliban, she's used in the eyes of some the power of extremists within Pakistan perhaps to play off against India, and now she's saying she's going to crack down on all of this. When she talks about the wheel having turned, it really has, hasn't it?
Well, she has never supported extremism, may it be for any reason. She's a moderate leader. She belongs to a liberal background, and she's always promoted moderate values in the country. Now, the task for her today is definitely different, as the guest before me had rightly put that it is a progressive party, but where I disagree is that no legacy has changed. I think Ms. Bhutto has different challenges today, and it's a different situation. So it is not that she's trying to get into power for her party or for herself. It is what is happening in Pakistan, which you rightly pointed out, the situation in NWFP, the situation in Balochistan and other parts of the country. So it is extremely important for any leader to think sensibly and to have a smooth transition towards democracy from a dictatorial system.
Ashan Iqbal from the Pakistan Muslim League, Nawaz Sharif's party. It should have been your man, in your eyes, who would be returning home, or if not already there.
Well, yes, we are also very happy that Ms. Benazir Bhutto is returning, but at the same time, we are a little upset that General Musharraf is applying the law very selectively, or not everyone is welcome into Pakistan. Anyone who can join Musharraf's league has the right to enter Pakistan, but Mr. Sharif, when Supreme Court allowed him to return to Pakistan, he returned on 10th of September. He was unfortunately forcibly again deported out of the country. We think that when Pakistan is almost nearing an election time, it is time that we have a level playing field in the country. All political parties and all leaders should be provided an opportunity to freely participate in the elections. And as we were discussing, that we have seen in our history that whenever we have had long military governments, Pakistani society has become internally more unstable. It has become more fractured from inside. It's only through democratic process that we have seen Pakistani society internally becoming more harmonious or becoming more stable. So in order to bring stability to Pakistan and in the region, we need to restore genuine democracy. We need to bring an end to military dictatorship. And it's about time for General Musharraf to now respect the rulings of the Supreme Court. Supreme Court is also hearing his case about eligibility as president, because under the law we feel no military or government officer is eligible to hold any political office. The exemption he got under the previous amendment has expired with the present term, and he has no exemption for the next term of office of president. And likewise, now Supreme Court is also today is taken up the case of deportation of Mr. Nawaz Sharif, and has taken a serious notice that why this contempt has been committed, and we hope that Mr. Nawaz Sharif will come back again in November. And when he comes back, Mr. Musharraf is going to follow the same tradition which he has offered to People's Party and Ms. Benazir Bhutto, that he has allowed all her workers to go to Karachi, while when Mr. Sharif came, more than 5,000 of our workers were arrested and Pindi, Islamabad was completely sealed.
OK, well, we'll get back to some of those issues in just a moment. Let's take a look at the woman herself, Benazir Bhutto. It's going to be her second return from exile. More than a checkered history in her case, never far from controversy. Hugo McPherson takes a look.
A tumultuous welcome. Benazir Bhutto's first return from exile back in 1986. She went on to become Prime Minister and a darling of the West. One of the world's most high-profile women from one of its most famous political dynasties, she was seen as a refreshing, dynamic change from legions of staid male leaders with a brave stance against extremism.
In fact, military rule is the cause of the anarchic situation in Pakistan. Military rule is not the solution. Extremism thrives under dictatorship.
From one of Pakistan's wealthiest landowning families, Bhutto ironically established cult status as a champion of the poor. She turned to politics after her father, Pakistan's first non-military prime minister, was deposed and then executed in 1979 by military dictator General Zia. After 5 years in detention, she was allowed to leave for England, where she rallied huge support as leader in exile of her father's Pakistan People's Party. On returning to her homeland, she won 2 spells as Prime Minister, being voted one of the world's most beautiful people on the way. But each time her government was dismissed amid claims of corruption, allegations she's always denied.
I'm helpless, I'm a victim, I'm vulnerable. Attempts have been made on my life. How can a victim make things like this?
But Bhutto fled into self-imposed exile in 1999.
Yes, I have done this.
Since then, the shrewd and determined broker has fought to rebuild her public status and dodge the political flak. Earlier this year, she was in talks with rival opposition leader Nawaz Sharif about siding with him against President Pervez Musharraf. And now, with US backing, she's negotiated an amnesty allowing her to return home as a power-sharing ally of Musharraf, a move that's created huge divisions among Pakistanis about what her return will mean for democracy. But Bhutto is insistent.
I'm looking forward to it. Everything is ready. The people are ready. I am ready. And I'm on schedule.
On the streets of Karachi this week, anticipations reached fever pitch. But in the complex world of Pakistan's politics, what will happen next?
And that's an important question we'll be addressing in just a moment. We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, we'll be talking about how Benazir Bhutto's return is viewed inside Pakistan. Do stay with us here on Inside Story.